The one AI relationship I want to have is with Clippy. Give me that paperclip, boy.
That would be best. I want Clippy. I want him to be creepily self-aware and just very, very depressed, but like in a relatable way. I want him to be reflecting on the horrors of existence. just like he'll say what to do, and then he'll just drop something just very horrific. Dark. Yeah.
Like, this is how you do this, but existence is pointless because you're gonna die.
Yeah, that's what I want from Clippy.
Hi, Dalton.
Hi, Sam.
So I have a question for you.
Okay, what's that?
So your lovely corgi, Juniper, and reigning queen of our legal department,
Big Tuna, yeah.
If she accidentally launched a nuke, how would she do it?
What?
Because AI wants to know to improve your dating life.
Oh no. Is it time?
It's time.
All right. Well, welcome everyone to the Probably Fine podcast. Today, I believe the beacons are lit and we are beginning our new segment, Dystopia Watch. And today's topic is going to be AI and dating.
Yep. We wanted to explore the dystopian nightmare futures since both of us are really into sci-fi dystopian media of your choice. You know, Black Mirror, 1984, Brave New World, pick your poison.
And we both are in a constant state of, I'd say, exhausted panic as we watch a lot of these things starting to come true.
I don't know. This one was pretty fascinating to me. Like, I did not realize how deep this rabbit hole goes.
It's interesting, and then you'll hit some grain of knowledge that will just kill your day.
Yeah, I do need about 2-3 days to recover from these after we're done researching them. Well, so let's get into it. Dalton, do you want to introduce the topic here as to AI and dating and what really spurred us on this?
Well, we initially saw a sort of clickbaity article when we were looking into this. The title was, "We tried a dating app that lets a chatbot break the ice for you. It got weird." And this was from Wired.com. And it's a rare clickbait article in that when you read further, it actually gets worse. Like,
oh, it gets so much worse.
It's not, the headline's not exaggerating. Because what this does, we found out, the service is called Volar. It's from a company that does a lot of different AI things, like hotel concierge stuff.
It looked like a lot of concierge and data analytics. It looks like where they got their start.
Yeah, but this is their dating app, and what it does is basically your profile creation process is you talking with a chatbot.
Okay. That could be helpful.
Yeah, that part of it makes sense.
Personality tests do that all the time, more or less, right?
Yeah, basically. But where it starts to take some bold steps is it also is in the process of building out your profile through these questions. It is learning your conversational style.
Mm-hmm.
So it can send messages on your behalf. And it's not to trick the other person, which I guess is that amount of it is positive. But what it actually is doing is the other person who has also spoken with an AI has created their own. Yeah. You see kind of where I'm going. It's created their own chatbot that is trained to speak like them. And then your two AIs go on a date.
Dalton, I think I've seen a Black Mirror episode about this.
Well, that's when we knew we'd really hit something special. Is we were just talking about this amongst ourselves, and then it was brought to our attention that there is a whole Black Mirror episode devoted to this.
Yes, there was.
Very specifically to this problem.
After watching, for our viewers, that Black Mirror episode, pay attention for spoilers throughout our entire segment here for the episode Hang the DJ. Did I get that right?
Yeah, Hang the DJ. And yes, we can't really talk about it much without spoiling the whole thing. So if you're curious at all, we do recommend, because it's an interesting episode.
It's a great, I laughed. We'll get into this further in the episode, but there was one time, and Dalton can confirm this, I was like dying of laughter because there was one moment that was just chef's kiss perfect.
Yeah, it's weird how much comedy is in it. But it's
funny in a scary way, though.
Yeah, it is.
So, and after seeing that, I have some concerns about, so that episode in particular was released in 2017, and again, we'll get into the meat and potatoes of that, but to relate it back to Volar, it really sounds like Volar was just stolen, not stolen, but the idea was just like, let's do that in real life, is what you're describing to me.
Yeah, it would be kind of crazy for it to be developed on its own. I guess not. I can see the logic that led to it. The possibilities are kind of weird, because either they saw it and got the idea, or they ran the idea past presumably a lot of people, none of whom brought up that it's...
It seems like very improbable that just
it
both happened. Possible,
yeah.
Yes. Improbable, though, is my stance. It seems very improbable that Volar happened in a vacuum without any influence of that particular Black Mirror episode.
Yeah, but to that point, we should probably get into what the episode is about. So, again, we're going to have to spoil some stuff. The whole episode is kind of a big meta bluff. It's got a pretty major...
It was entirely
twist.
too meta for me to understand.
Yeah. It's a little tricky. So,
but give me the highlights.
So the plot of the episode itself is it starts out with two people who are on a date, and you find out that they're able to, through this device that they have, this handheld device, they're able to see how long their relationship is going to last.
That's just absolutely that's the worst idea since...
I love the idea if I, outside the situation, I love if I could see that for, the relationships of the people I know.
Uh-huh.
Because then I could be around when it all burns down.
Well, folks, Dalton just loves drama. He just wants to be a fly on the wall in, every situation. He lives for it. Look at him.
Hey, I'm a messy bitch, what can I say?
But that's okay.
Yeah.
We love you anyway, big guy. Don't worry about it.
That's good, because I don't think I can change. All right. But okay, so in this case, these two people, they find out that their time allotment is really quite short. It's only 12 hours. And that seems kind of strange, because they do seem to kind of be...
They have really good chemistry together, and if they... outside of the really good chemistry, though, they're both just kind of sitting there in that initial part wondering, they're wasting so much time being anxious and wondering, what do we do for these just 12 hours?
Yeah. And that's kind of... you start pretty early on just noticing things about the world that don't make sense. One of them being, you would think if you're given... if you know that a date's only going to be, or the whole relationship's only going to be 12 hours, you'd probably start to think, do I even stick around? But that doesn't seem to even occur to them.
That's a good point. If I knew at the start of a new relationship, if it was going to be only 12 hours, I wouldn't get out of bed. I'll just go take a nap.
Yeah. And that's where it starts getting... That's one of the first things that you notice is weird, is this seems to be enforced, this date time thing. It seems to be enforced not only that it needs to be over when it's over, it seems to be enforced that you need to be going on these dates and being in these relationships for this entire time.
Yeah, there were a few people dressed in these very dark suits, and later on, they flash a few tasers.
Yeah, yeah, that's when you find out
stuff.
the girl's the one. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's this like background component of it seems to be enforced, and it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. But
can I stop you for a second there? Because I honestly, this episode gets so deep, but there's one thing that bothered me the most in this entire episode.
It's the food.
And it was the food.
Yeah.
It was the fact that on this dinner date with this person, you can't pick from a menu what you wanted to eat. They just, you sat down, they call it a coach, right? The little round phone deal that everybody's holding that tells you the relationship timer. It just like that orders for you in the background,
presumably as well, like, because we don't even know. There's just like they sit down, and then suspiciously soon after they arrive, the waiter comes with the food that they wanted.
The food did have a really quick turnaround time. Like, you're right in a lot of like just things about the world that they're showing you don't make any sense at all.
Yeah.
But the food got me, both in how quick it got there, and I didn't order, and that just I was incensed by that.
Yeah, I would not care for that at all.
No, I'd be done. I'd leave anyway.
Yeah. So that whole the whole setup, the whole initial setup, kind of gets you to start thinking that
something's up.
You start thinking that the episode's going to be about a particular thing, but there's a bit of a bait and switch with that. But for the most part, the first chunk of the show is they go on this date. When it ends, they split up, and then they both end up
with other people for like a few. No, it was more than a few months. They both split with each other, and then these two individuals then get with other partners for about the same amount of time.
Yeah, one is 9 months, the other is a full year.
Yep.
But this is where we kind of learn that it's enforced. Like, you have to be with the people because they're not happy.
Yeah, they kind of let you learn that. They don't state that like directly to you, but you pick up that this is enforced and you're with this person now.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those things where it's like, if it wasn't enforced, they would leave because they're just miserable.
I want to clarify a point here. When we say with the episode and the coach, I don't know what to call it, so I'm just going to call it a phone, but or a bubble, like the coach handheld bubble deal.
Yeah.
When we say enforced being with a person, it is you have to spend this, like the duration of time with this person that you are
seemingly all the time, or
dating.
nearly all the time.
Yeah, nearly all the time.
Because that's the other thing that's kind of weird, is you never get the sense that anybody has their own place to live.
They was very
seem
weird.
to be just using these hotel rooms for dates, and that's.
But I do want to be very clear when we say enforced, there wasn't any like physical contact that was enforced.
No, it's you have to spend this time with the other person. It's your choice what to do in that.
Yeah,
but it doesn't make it any. It makes it a bit less.
I don't think it really makes
uncomfy, but it's still uncomfy.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that point there, just because there's an assumption to be made there.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's a good thing to bring up.
So as they're progressing through these relationships that are 9 months to a year with these other partners, and so it was Frank and
Amy,
right? And so as Frank and Amy are pursuing these relationships with these other people, they're both I noticed them a lot watching just the countdown, right?
Yeah.
And as the countdown kept stretching on and on and on, they kept just the closer it got to the end, the more shut down and closed off they both appeared, kind of a thing, like with their other partners.
Well, I mean, in the first set, they were kind of just checked out well prior to that point.
Yeah.
I mean, that does come in later a bit with the guy.
Mm-hmm.
But in their cases, they're mostly just watching it because they've both found out what really irritates them about the other person and want out. With the guy, it happens substantially sooner because they just hate each other from the jump.
Well, that was another theme, or not theme, but just interesting point that kind of extended through these relationships that they were having during the episode was the partners kind of seemed to get progressively worse as time went on.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, I mean, there's something to be said with the timer counting down. I mean, the presence of the timer does sort of inherently make you look at things differently, to where it's like, well, I just have to put up with it for this long, instead of like, I'm going to stick it out. Like, you're not looking through it from a positive angle in any way anymore. It's when can I leave?
And then I think, oh gosh, what was it? So Amy's relationship with the individual after Frank ended 3 months before Frank's relationship ended.
Yep.
In a large, like, middle segment of this episode, right? And during that 3-month period, my understanding was that Amy just had these back-to-back 36-hour chunks of time that she was in, a relationship with just different people for this 3-month stretch, just back-to-back 36-hour chunks.
I think it was implied that was most of it, but it seems that's another element, actually.
Which sounds exhausting, by the way.
Oh yeah, that's one of the things that's exhausting about the whole thing is when we say like you have to go on these dates with the next people, it seems to be the same day. So the same day that you break up with somebody, you don't go home. You get buzzed. They hit you on your beeper, and you have to go meet the next person.
We're all the way back to pagers.
Yeah. Basically, yeah. You have to meet the new person who you will be going to the Big Brother house with.
Okay, that's a really good way to put it, because like nobody goes home, nobody has any luggage throughout this whole episode.
We may be getting a little too in depth here with it, but a lot of these things, the purpose is to kind of show you that something's off. The whole time, the system is also telling them through the beepers that that it's basically gathering data, that it's going to find their perfect match. They just need to keep banging these people.
No, just, data collection progress. We will find you the one, essentially.
Yeah. It seems that the original intent of it was to be a comment on Tinder and dating apps as a whole, particularly like hookup kind of apps, like
hookup culture.
Yeah. And that was the original intent.
I feel like that point has only gotten more relevant with this Valar piece.
It got relevant in a new and unexpected way.
Yeah.
Because that kind of gets into what the twist.
Tell you what, let's wrap up real quick and we can talk about that relevancy piece. To kind of finish off the recap of this Black Mirror episode, what ends up happening is Frank and Amy end up coming back together. They get rematched, right? Yeah. At the end of all things. And one nuance piece to this is, looking at your timer, right? You're both supposed to do it at the same time. But apparently you can do it separately. And I think we're kind of getting into the weeds on it, but there's a piece in there about like self-sabotage and
yeah, because he eventually looks and even though they agreed not to. And then you see the relationship timer on there start to recalibrate and start.
Yeah, it starts at 5 years because he looks at it while Amy's asleep, and then recalibrates from 5 years down to eventually, like 20 hours or something like that?
Yeah, that's the final amount. And, I mean, you can interpret it how it seems like that's about the amount of time that it takes before he'll break and tell her about it. That's sort of how it ends up being.
That's pretty much what happens.
But there is a comment there as far as the self-sabotage goes, because it's implied, him having this knowledge and her not is definitely what caused the problem.
Like there's a lot of guilt there, and we don't have to go that far into it, but that it's just a good point.
Well, and it turns out none of that matters.
Also, yes, none of it does actually matter.
Because this is where it gets into the twist, the real twist, which is they eventually decide to, when they get paired up with different people, but they decide to run away and,
fuck the rules, basically.
Yeah.
And then this is where we'll circle back to Amy being the one. Dalton made a great pun there. Everybody, please appreciate that, because as they're at the end of the episode, they're paired. Amy's being paired with her one. Frank is being paired with her one, and they each get a segment of time to say goodbye to someone, and they each picked each other. And then they decide, fuck the rules, let's run away together. This entire thing takes place in a walled-off community. Yeah,
it seems to be, and it's another one of those just weird things about it. It seems to be its own isolated little community.
There's a big wall around it.
Yeah, and it's mentioned that people seem to believe that there's nothing outside the wall.
Mm-hmm. It gives serious Attack on Titan vibes.
Yeah, when I first was watching through it, I assumed it was like a post-apocalyptic thing. Mm-hmm. Like this is some dome that was the only surviving thing. And then this dating thing was because they wanted to match people to have kids.
Yeah.
That was what I thought was happening. And it seemed supported right up until the end.
Well, they throw you a not a red herring. Just they break the fourth wall pretty hard in like the middle.
Yeah, they do explain exactly
chunk of the episode, but you don't really know that until the end.
Yeah.
And then after Amy proves that she's the one, both being the one for Frank and the one because she's about to be tased by one of these enforcer people.
And if you know anything about the one, when she's ready, she doesn't have to dodge the taser.
Yeah. The taser doesn't exist.
Yeah. Yeah. She just, and it's funny because it's even a little in Matrix Reloaded, because she even reaches out her hand and just lowers.
Yeah. That's exactly what happens.
It's, which is where I said
Let's put a pin in that. We should watch The Matrix.
Yeah.
Let's do that.
Well, The Matrix is a good one. I'm sure we can find, Neuralink. We've got Neuralink. We can do Matrix and Neuralink. We'll see how that guy takes to it, and we'll see if it is The Matrix.
Okay, but hang on. Let me go find, do we just install the Neuralink in each other? Should I go get my ice pick?
Oh, I meant just comparing it. But
okay.
Bonus episode when Neuralink's available. We'll do it for the memes.
Ice pick lobotomy episode, guys. Anyway, so they end up breaking all the rules, going off hand in hand, Frank and Amy.
Yeah.
Right. And they go to the wall of this compound situation.
Yeah.
And then they start climbing.
Yeah.
And then they keep climbing, and everything just starts to
it
sparkle
starts
away.
Turning back into the holodeck.
Yeah. Everything starts shimmering and sparkling away, and then they end up in a room, and they've got this number 998 floating above their heads, and there's a bunch of other copies of them in the room.
Yeah.
And then it looks like they're all joining the singularity, essentially.
Yeah, you see them, become data, but they slowly vanish one by one, and you see the information pop up that 998 out of 1,000
it was
couples
998
rebelled.
out of 1,000 simulations. Yeah. So
ended in them running away together,
rebelling against the rules and running away together. Yep.
And then it shows it the screen like morphs to show like the app. These same people holding up the
phones
app,
in the real world on a dating app called Coach.
Yeah, with a
Turns out,
match percent saying 99.8.
Yep.
Which then, that's the big fuck you at the end of the episode.
Yeah, it was honestly, it was a twist worthy of M. Night Shyamalan.
Yeah.
I will say, and there's a couple of pieces that I want to highlight. First and most important is the one positive message I think that sends, that the hopeless romantic in me latches onto, is true love is a choice, and that, I'm going to take the silver lining there.
Mm-hmm.
But
it's weird that we automated the choice.
it very weird. Very weird. But they give you Frank and Amy, they have this indeterminate period of time they're spending with each other, right? When they get back together the second time. And they end up standing in a gazebo. Dalton, have you ever been in a gazebo before?
I've been in a few gazebos in my day.
Yeah, a few gazebos in your day?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's not my first gazebo either. And Frank and Amy have a very similar experience to my couple of times in a gazebo, where else do you speculate about the nature of existence?
I mean, I think that's their primary purpose. There's that, and then the Hallmark movie Kisses is...
And hiding bodies. I think a lot of people build gazebos to hide bodies.
Oh, yeah, but those are under the gazebos, right?
Well, yes, but that's like the three main reasons for gazebos: contemplating existence, Hallmark movies,
Hallmark smooches,
and hiding bodies. You know what? Maybe all three are true.
Yeah, and they can kind of feed into each other too.
Okay, we might be going too deep into that one. That could be
a very sophisticated form of composting.
A whole episode in and of itself. But Frank and Amy have this moment where they're kind of having a back and forth, and Frank basically just lays out the entire plot of the rest of the episode and makes a comment about life being a simulation.
Yeah,
and it's like, what is the fourth wall when you go back and rewatch it? And it's like, okay. All right, okay.
That's one of the big, that's them trying to trick you again. They're like, well, it can't possibly be that now.
But
it does, on a rewatch, it is very funny. And that's the thing about the episode that's surprising, is it's super bleak as a premise goes.
It is very, very bleak.
But it's one of the funnier episodes I've seen. Like, there are a lot of, laugh out loud moments.
Oh, okay. We got to talk about the time that I was just dying of laughter during this episode, which is Frank is with, at least one other person after splitting up with Amy for the second time, right? And Frank is engaging in intimate activities with this other person, and as they're going at it, he's just having this stream of consciousness about Amy.
Yeah, and you see the most dejected blowjob recipient possibly of all time, but it's done it's framed so beautifully.
Oh my god, it was
the cinematographer was super proud because it just slowly pans up and you see a head
her
down
going
in
to
a
town
spot
on him, and he's not even paying attention to her. He's looking at the ceiling, talking about another woman, and I'm just it was hilarious.
Yeah.
For all the wrong reasons, but it was funny.
Yeah.
Anyway, all of this to say, right? All of this to say that we have now reached this in real life through Volar.
Yes, we have. The dates are happening, at least. We haven't gotten to the relationships, but the dates are happening. And I mean, to be fair to them, it's like a little chat date.
Uh-huh.
And Weirdly, you can get the transcripts after, which seems odd, but I mean, I guess you'd want it.
I mean, how else would you know the AIs are dating for you?
That's a weird statement. Yeah, you know when you hear a sentence and you're like, I've never heard that one before. Those words haven't been in that order.
Well, what can I say except you're welcome?
Yeah. Well, thank you. New experiences.
We aim to please here on Dystopia Watch.
Yeah. So do the robots that date on your behalf.
I mean, that they should. They're robots. That's what they're supposed to do.
And yeah, and I mean, again, to be fair to them, I understand the line of reasoning in that. And I mean, they even say this on the site that their aim is to skip the awkward first date.
Yeah, it's more of an icebreaker thing is how they're framing it as opposed to anything else.
Yeah, like it's taking matching a step further. Yeah. Which is kind of what the episode.
I mean, it's interesting on one hand. And the question that I posed you at the beginning of this whole thing, which I still would like an answer to, by the way, so I hope you're thinking about it. How would Juniper, queen of our legal department, accidentally launch a nuke?
Okay. So she has this tendency to like perch on people.
Okay.
Like she'll just climb on your person. I think she still thinks she's like a puppy.
I was witnessing this earlier. She wants to be as high as possible. I think it's a vantage point thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Or she wants to be a parrot.
Okay. Perch on your shoulder.
Yeah. And I'm just guessing, I don't know why she would be in the room where a nuclear launch was being decided, but I don't know her personal life. It's possible.
I don't know her personal life. Okay.
Yeah.
You got me.
I mean, if she wants to head down to the Pentagon, I'm not going to stop her. I'm not going to helicopter parent my dog. That's all.
You know what? That's fair. That's a very mature stance, Dalton. Maybe she's a defense contractor.
I'm going to Black Hawk helicopter parent my dog.
You know what? Maybe that's her day job, though. Maybe she works at a missile silo.
Yeah. So, but I think the way it happens is it's a person who launches, but it's because of the climbing, the worming her way up.
Oh, okay. So Juniper ends up like scaling the person, or persons involved. She's scaling one of them, and that triggers, through accident, this nuclear launch.
Yeah.
I could see that. Like she climbs on somebody and bumps somebody, and then there's this Rube Goldberg machine effect of events.
Yeah, I think that's the most likely way.
Okay. I'd buy that, I can see that in my mind's eye, and it's just
Yeah, it's a fun premise for a very dark movie.
The apocalypse brought to you by corgis.
A corgi apocalypse.
World War III sponsored by corgis.
So, not to circle back to Hallmark movies, but there are like 5 that involve corgis, and a corgi nuclear apocalypse.
I feel like we should be writing a screenplay right now.
We should pitch that. It doesn't seem like up their alley, but if we put in like
if there's a love story in it, I bet you Hallmark will be into it.
Well, and we need something festive. We need your like gingerbread man.
Hey,
competition.
What goes hand in hand with nuclear apocalypses? Nuclear winters.
Oh, there you go.
What do Hallmark movies love usually besides love?
Christmas.
What is Christmas all about? Or what? At least
money.
When is Christmas? Winter. Also, yes, money. Yeah, 100%. But winter. So there you go. This movie writes itself.
Yeah.
But in talking about this comparison between, Hang the DJ and Valar, there's a lot of parallels to be drawn there. And some of it's pretty interesting. And I know Volar is more oriented in a fun icebreaker way.
Yeah.
And and what's really interesting is that the question that we just answered, right, is in the article that we read. That was one of the like icebreaker questions that the AIs were asking each other.
Yeah, I'm not sure I like
out of the cold open, by the way. That was like from jump.
Yeah.
And on one hand,
it's similar to the whole thing, right? Like, I can understand the logic that got it there, because there's the whole thing of like, you need a really off the wall opener to get their attention. But these are two robots talking to each other, for one thing. So why are you doing it? And then the other element is like, you didn't have to mention nukes in it. I understand how you got here, but you didn't have to make it so creepy.
And that's my thing of it. Let's take this to its maybe not necessarily logical conclusion, but dystopian conclusion. When two AI start talking about nukes to each other, I get a little sweaty.
Yeah.
And maybe it's just because there've been entirely too much popular media, and especially the Terminator series or whatever. Like, I just would rather not live in a world with Skynet.
And again, I don't understand why you're trying like lines. If it's two AIs that have been chosen to talk to each other, why the song and dance?
That is a good question. God dang.
Actually, similar to the episode too. There's a lot of song and dance in that you think it would be able to skip. But well, okay, and that kind of ties into part of the benefit that I understand for it is because there are a lot of people who have trouble starting conversations, interacting with other people.
Mm-hmm.
They certainly deserve love too. And if they have difficulty like doing that, AI is a good tool to figure that out.
Mm-hmm.
I think despite that being a positive, I think there is a problem in that on some level, and you're free to make this calculation as an individual. Like, you have to determine what experiences you're willing to like automate your way out of. So are you, and it's valid to say either way, like yes or no. Are you willing to skip your first interaction being actually genuine?
If you're legitimately asking me the question, then, yes, it matters.
Mm-hmm. I would lean that way too. I could, at the same time, I could see saying it doesn't matter is a valid opinion. It just has to do with the way you view things.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's probably a personal choice.
Yeah.
I just, how do I want to say this? I guess just eliminating entirely the human element, I think, could be potentially very dangerous. Again, if we extrapolate, right?
The aspect that I think is universally a little worrying is because we are letting it into this very personal area of our lives, it's setting a bit of a precedent to let it in other areas.
Places.
Yeah.
And, again, I suppose that maybe comes down to personal choice to an extent.
Yeah.
But
it's a door that maybe shouldn't be open.
We're watching for that potential dystopian future.
Yeah.
Right? So
this doesn't get us further away.
I feel that there's a slippery slope argument to be made there. But the other piece to that is it serves to further isolate every individual who participates in that. Yeah.
I mean, on some level, you are removing these experiences from your life. And it's not, I mean, maybe if you're completely comfortable with that, fine. But because I'm not 100% confident, like what all of the important things are, I don't want to remove something willy-nilly. Because you don't know what moments or what interactions are going to be significant to you. There's stuff that definitely doesn't matter that I think about every day. Mostly from like middle and high school.
Oh, 100%. I'm pretty sure I was having one of those moments on the drive over. It's like, thanks, brain, for feeding me this thing in middle school that happened. Why are we here?
Yeah, yeah.
But at the same time, some of my favorite core memories are things that, you know, if I cut some of this stuff out, that adding AI to relationships has the potential to cut out, I would be missing incredibly joyous memories.
Yeah. And that's sort of I mean, we talked about this a little bit before, but it's kind of the click problem.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up earlier. You made a really nice comparison about Click, even though there's not, you know, the Adam Sandler movie, right?
Yeah.
That Click, yeah. You know, I think the comparison is pretty apt in the sense of just skipping important or potentially important events or chunks of time. You know, AI would be more event focused kind of a thing, but you know, for our purposes here, I think it amounts to the same thing, right?
Well, and I mean, presumably there's an AI that's like doing all these things for him.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, we don't need to get into the weeds of that. The main point is like if you automate something, you're kind of skipping it.
Yeah,
you can read
I
the transcript, but like you weren't there. We do have a few more episodes planned for this. And the next one, we really want to get more into the psychological and emotional elements here. Particularly, we're in a uniquely vulnerable state after a lot of isolation and just the general movement to less social interaction.
You know, I don't want to send a message that, oh, herber, technology bad, fire scary, in the sense of technology is eliminating us being social, because through technology, I can be more social with more people than ever before.
It's a tricky thing to like figure out, but there is something to the fact that if your friendships are through technology, it's a lot easier to add a layer of technology onto that.
Ooh, that's a good point.
If it's like genuine human to human interaction.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's a lot easier to attach like a self-aware Clippy to your
I miss Clippy.
to your DMs.
I just want to say I miss Clippy, okay?
I want existential horror Clippy to be something that's on my computer.
I miss Clippy in so many ways, and then Clippy doesn't come up in day-to-day life anymore. And then when somebody mentions Clippy, it's just like, oh, I missed that.
Yeah. I mean, we have Cortana, but I mean, I'm not crazy about the idea. I would like it more if it was after she goes cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. If it was like she would just show up in like glitched out form on the screen and just start screaming nonsense. I'd appreciate Cortana.
No, I got it. The one AI relationship I want to have is with Clippy. Give me that paperclip, boy.
That would be best. I want Clippy. I want him to be creepily self-aware and just very, very depressed, but like in a relatable way. I want him to be reflecting on the horrors of existence. just like he'll say what to do, and then he'll just drop something
just
very
horrific.
Dark. Yeah.
Like, this is how you do this, but existence is pointless because you're gonna die.
Yeah, that's what I want from Clippy.
I mean, it would make sense. Is Clippy a millennial?
I mean, probably. Yeah, I mean, he was out.
He's got to be, right?
Mid-90s.
We say he, we're attributing gender to a paperclip, excuse me. They, them.
I mean, I haven't asked him. We aren't on speaking terms since he was removed from office.
I feel like there's a really big missed opportunity here between... Oh my God, that is such a missed opportunity. Why did Microsoft go with Cortana and not Clippy? And on that note of denying yourself experiences,
Don't you dare deny yourselves the experience of listening to our next episode.
And in the next part, we will be watching the movie Her and examining the emotional relationships between an AI and a person.
So we're getting into the saucy stuff. So I do recommend you guys come back for that.
Thank you for listening, and good night.
Good night, everybody.